Welcome to Faith and Focus with Illyria, where we talk about all things life, business, and leadership from a Christ-centered perspective. Please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing to this channel. And let's get on with today's topic. Hey, welcome to Faith and Focus with Illyria, where we talk about all things life, business, and leadership from a Christ-centered perspective. Today, I want to talk to you about what I learned last year. So last year we have just crossed over into 2025. Amen. Last year I learned quite a few things about myself. So if you don't know, I am in my upper 40s. I'm 47. I am single. I don't have any children. I do have two siblings. I am the oldest of my siblings. My sister and I are 8 years apart. My brother and I are 23 years apart. So he is very much like my child. But that still does not necessarily satisfy that desire that I once had to become a parent. I do have 3 godchildren, and that is where I am in my life right now. I am excited about what God is doing in their lives as they grow and they mature, and they're still very young. My oldest godchild, she is 7, and my godson is 5, and then I have a goddaughter who is 3. So the Lord has blessed me to fulfill that need to parent, or that desire to parent. I believe last year I learned how to be content with where God had me. I have learned that last year, I learned a lot of people have a tendency to make marriage an idol. For those who are married, God bless you. I love you. I encourage marriage. I love marriage. For those of you who are single, guess what? I love being single. I love being single too. And I had to realize last year that not everyone is called to marriage. So I don't know if God will ever call me to marriage. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But at that same situation, I'm happy. I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with where it's going. Have there been challenges? 2024 kicked my butt. 2024, there were challenges. Capital C, capital H, capital. Challenges. But the Lord has kept me, and he has provided for me. Even when I didn't see the provision, where the provision was coming from, the Lord still kept me. And I think it's so amazing how we go through things and we don't know how we're going to make it through. And then we make it over, and then we're like, oh, I made it through that. Like, it's a surprise. Anyway, I learned that last year. So I do have a list that I'm going to be looking at from my phone to talk about a couple of the things that I learned last year that maybe you can also take into your spirit. The beautiful thing about learning things is that you can do things wiser and you can do things smarter in the next go round. And so one of the things I learned about myself last year was I idolized money. And what I mean by that, I'm not a very materialistic person, but when I say I idolized money, I was working for the money. I was working hard for the money, like doing everything that I knew to do in order to make money so that I could meet these bills. And so I was just doing everything, and I got to the point of burnout. And I was not trusting God to provide for me the way that I needed to be provided for. And so the Lord told me that because I was working for the money and not allowing the Lord to be my provider, that was idolizing money. I would do everything that I needed to do in order to make money. And guess what? My ends didn't meet. They weren't tying neatly in a bow. They were struggling to meet. They did not meet. And it's because I wasn't putting that complete trust in God to be my provider. I was putting that trust in me, in my paychecks, and not, I'm not a big spender either. I'm not a big shopper. And so I wasn't even spending money, but it seemed like every creditor, everything just seemed like it was going up. My paychecks were not going up, and my businesses were not producing. So the paychecks that I was getting, I was having to take portions of that, sacrificing my house to be able to pay staff or to be able to, pay bills until I could no longer do that. So it was like it made it to where I had made the sacrifices in my house so much that no longer, like, my paychecks that I do receive from my primary job didn't cover my mortgage, didn't cover my house bills, and didn't cover my business. So this year I am in the rebuilding stage. Since the Lord has brought that to my attention, one thing he told me was, you don't work for tips. And so that meant be who I am. I am in the places I am for a reason, for a purpose, and it is not to work for tips. And so in my businesses, we allow for people to leave tips for our staff. Whoever works that day, they get tips. And so, usually my staff does really well on tips. But when I would work, I either wouldn't get any tips or I might walk away with $1. Mind you, I'm not getting any money for these businesses. I was paying to work. And what I mean by paying to work was I was kicking out money from my primary job, kicking out money to pay all these other people to work, and then I would work and still not be able to get paid. That is not the will of God. But it taught me a valuable lesson. It taught me not to idolize money. So that was one of the first things I learned. The next thing I learned was that my heart needed to be renovated.